We're not just trying to find the people who are lost, but the lost voices, the lost stories, and the lost hope of their loved ones as well.
The two boys that were in the vehicle and their parents that helped cover up the vehicle are all guilty.
We want the families to know that people still give a damn.
I saw my father put his hands around her neck, and then he carried her out of my sight.
Our name is also our mission. We are locating the lost.
I've accepted my brother's death. I can still talk to him. We just don't see him physically. And I know I'm a believer that I'm going to see him again one day.
Follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, and most podcast platforms. All right, we're alive. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and those watching back, thank you as well. Tonight, we're joined by Mizzy. She is an advocate for the case of Sandra Birchmore, who was found deceased in her apartment February 4th, 2021 in Canton, Massachusetts. Mizzy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I see underneath your name, it says a mixed girl in a mixed up world. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's my channel that I started in 2021. I interview families of loved ones who have been murdered, and it was a safe space for them to come talk to somebody about their case. And I would also, help them behind the scenes, whether it be sending emails or just any way I could help them behind the scenes, because sometimes a family member of somebody who's been murdered just needs somebody to help them a little, even just a little bit, bounce ideas off, because a lot of times, if their case isn't solved, a lot of times it's the families who pick up the mantle, and they're the driving force trying to get a case solved. So that's where my channel started going into. And then I stumbled on Sandra's case. I saw it on the news, and I had, went from there.
Yeah, so I did put in the chat the link to your YouTube channel. So please, if you guys can go over, give her a subscribe. You're doing great work out there, Mizzy, and we appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you putting the link in the chat.
Yeah, of course. What can you tell us about Sandra?
Sandra was born in Boston on May 13th. And she grew up in Stoughton, Massachusetts. She lived there for most of her life, except when she went to college, and when she moved to Canton the last few months of her life. She was a very smart girl who was also very feisty. She was very pint-sized. She was only 4'10", but she was, there was a lot of feistiness in that little, 4'10" girl. She, like I said, she was very smart, but she also was a little socially awkward at times. But she was, a lot of people have told me that she was very funny, witty, and, she liked to be a good friend. And she was there for people whenever somebody needed them. I've had a lot of people tell me that about her. She loved her cats. She absolutely loved her cats. She had 2 cats. And she wanted to be a police officer growing up. And then she was getting ready to go into nursing school. So she was definitely somebody who wanted to serve the public and try to make this world a better place and be able to help people. She just wanted to, show that by becoming a nurse, and early on she wanted to be a police officer.
That's very admirable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have any information on life growing up, like with her family, or what exactly it contributed to social awkwardness?
I think it was she did get bullied a little bit in school. She was her mom was a single mom. She didn't know her father. her mom had a lot of health issues, so she had to take care of her a lot. So in a lot of ways, Sandra grew up very fast, and she became a caregiver. But then I think it's also, she also, like, I had a family member tell me when they had family gatherings, that she always wanted to sit with the adults, and they, this family member told me that she had to be like, go play with the kids type deal thing. So it's that she felt more comfortable, I think, more around adults than she did kids. So that probably made her a little socially awkward. One of her teachers told me that she was kind of a little paranoid because she thought the kids, were doing things that they might not have been. And, she had ADHD, so that might have had a little bit to do with it too. But unfortunately, she didn't get to blossom fully into a full-grown adult. She was only 23 when she died, and she was just starting to hit her stride and discover who she was becoming as a person. Like I said, she was about to start nursing school that spring, right after, from when she died. And she was just really starting to come into her own and mature and become the person that she was meant to be. And unfortunately, her life was cut short.
And how old was she when she passed away?
She was 23, she was almost 24. So she was almost, about to be 24. Okay.
And like you said, she's a small girl, right? 4'11", I think.
Yes.
4'10", yeah.
4'10", yeah. Very
4'10".
tiny girl. Very tiny girl. I always look, every time I see a picture of her like next to people, I always say, how was she going to be? I was actually thinking about it today. How was she going to be able to be a police officer? Not that she wouldn't have like had the heart to be a police officer, but just, I was like, how was she expecting to, like if she has to take down, a 6'3" guy, or, even like a 5'10" guy, in a traffic, getting somebody at a bar, or somebody causing a ruckus. I was like, how was she even going to do that? But people did tell me she was very feisty. So, that's one of the things I can relate to her, about her personality.
So what do we know about the Explorer program that she started? How old was she when she started that?
She was 12 going into 13. She was in the she was like on the waiting list, and then when she was 13 was when she was actually brought fully into the program. And before that, her mom had her and her mom did a program that was a way for them to bond better, and a way for both of them to learn how to like relate to each other when it comes, if they had resolve issues. And so it was a way for like almost like a parenting class, and also it would show the parents techniques on how to better communicate with their child, and for their child to better communicate with their parent, so they could resolve issues better than screaming, or for parents.
Was this something that was mandated for them, or did they voluntarily do it?
They voluntarily did it. I think her mom just felt, it was something that she needed. Like I said, she did have ADHD. So, some kids get rambunctious with ADHD. I wasn't rambunctious. I have it really bad. I was one of those kids that just always was tapping my foot or tapping on my thing. I'm always fidgeting. I'll like move my hair, play with my hair. So I don't know.
That's
so
me.
Yeah. But it was something that her mother felt that it would help them, be a better cohesive unit with each other. And she, matter of fact, the person that you just popped up on the screen, that's her cousin Barb. She's my partner in the Justice for Sandra Birchmore group. I started it, but her and I have been working hand in hand for years now. But so Sandra went to that program first, and then her mother was looking for a place to send her daughter so she could, flourish and get some discipline and, learn something. So she put her into the police explorers group from the Stoughton Police Department. And she was there till 2016 when she graduated.
Wow.
And that program was ran almost like a paramilitary group from Robert Devine, who was in the military, and he was a drill instructor. So he kind of took that and kind of put it into the police explorers group that he ran. So I've spoken to a few parents who were part of their children that were in the program, and they said they really liked the program, and they were shocked that this stuff was going on, that the grooming was going on there, and their children got a lot out of it. But I've had also other parents tell me that their child quit the program after 2 weeks because they felt like they were really hard on the boys, but they were flirting with the girls. So that was disturbing. And
but this is chronic. It's not just isolated to Sandra's case.
No, actually, there's another girl who was in. Robert Devine took over the Explorers program in 2002, and the girl who was in that first class, she was also in. He was an SRO officer at Stoughton Junior High School, and she had an experience with him there. She's testified about it, and she's not testified. I'm sorry. She spoke to the Massachusetts State Police about her experience. She says that
with the same guy,
with it, Robert Devine, one of the 3 officers that are involved in Sandra's case. He was the one who ran the program. This was back when the Farwell brothers were also in the Police Explorers group back when they were in high school in 2002. So that's how she knew the brothers. And they were, Matthew was deputized as the deputy chief of the Explorers group when he was there, and then his brother William was deputized as the lieutenant of the Explorers group when they were going through the program. And then they later came in as mentors from when they were coming in from the military, and then as they became police officers, they continued on to be mentors.
So hard on the boys and flirting with the girls.
Yes.
And what has FBI or anyone, because I know the FBI is involved in this case as well, right?
Yes.
Because they couldn't trust the local police to investigate this. What have they found, or what evidence has surfaced in this case?
Well,
actually, I'm sorry. We should go back for people that don't know a lot about the case. So it's found in her apartment February 4th, right?
Yes.
What led to anyone even looking? Was she missing? Did people realize that no one had talked to her?
On February, kind of just a little bit rewind. On February 1st, there was a huge snowstorm in Canton, Massachusetts, where Sandra lived. And it went from the 1st into the 2nd. So there was no school. And then on the 3rd, Sandra didn't show up for school. And then on the 4th, she didn't show. She was a teaching assistant at Sharon School, in the Sharon school system. So she didn't show up for school for the 3rd or the 4th. And on the 4th, the school was concerned because she hadn't been showing up to work, no call, no show. And she wasn't answering her phone. So they spoke to their SRO officer, which called Stoughton because they thought she still lived in Stoughton. And then that officer contacted the SRO officer in Canton, and he called into the station and said, "We need to go do a wellness check." So they went to her apartment to do a wellness check. 3 officers showed up.
Who are those 3 officers?
Officer Cotard, Officer Brady, and Officer I can't remember his name offhand.
So not one of the brothers then.
No. Yeah, that would have been bad. And they showed up to do the wellness check, and Sergeant Lank told them, they went and knocked on the door, no answer. They contacted Sergeant Lank, and he said, go see if you could find her car. They found her car, and there was snow on it, and they knew that it hadn't snowed since it snowed from the first into the second, so her car should have been cleaned off by then. So they went to the office to get the key, and they went into her apartment, and unfortunately found her in her bedroom with a ligature around her neck tied to the bedroom closet. Ensley, it's Ensley Cotard. That's who you're thinking of, Barb. It'll come to me. I don't know why I can't remember his name at the moment.
It's a lot of information to keep track of.
Yeah. And you'd be weird to know that I have cognitive issues, but I've read everything so many times. It's like breathing for me.
Yeah, you're doing fantastic.
Thank you. So they found her in a seated position with a ligature tied around her neck, attached to her bedroom closet handle. And I stress handle. It wasn't a doorknob. It was a handle, which is one of the things that I found weird when I first started looking at this case, because handles, sometimes you just pop them, the door pops open, and in the type of hanging that it is, it's kind of known as the prison hanging. It's a pressure hanging, and you have to lean forward to do it. So to me, it would have slid, and that door probably would have popped open. And I spoke to somebody who used to live in that apartment building right across the hall from where they moved out before she lived there. And they told me that apartment building, it looks nice, but it's very cheaply made. And they had to, before they even knew where in the apartment she supposedly did this to herself, they told me that the door, the handles on the closet specifically were very cheap, and they had to keep screwing their handle in. So that made me I didn't find this out till about this summer, and I was like, wow, that makes me even more, that makes my,
So you're saying that they didn't know the crime scene.
Yeah.
But somehow in conversation describing the cheapness of materials used, an example was given of the closet handle, which obviously supports any thought you have that that handle couldn't have supported the weight and force.
Yes. Because she knew that it was a hanging of some sort, but she didn't know the particulars of the case. She only knew a little bit about the case, and so that got me even more. And so that's on February 4th, and they after they find her, they back out, and they call their supervisor, and they say, we found her deceased. And that's where I don't know if it was them or when Officer Lank, Sergeant Lank, and Detective McCourt came to her apartment, and I don't know if they're the ones who started saying that she did this to herself, or if it's something that was talked about with them in the Massachusetts State Police.
And Barbara says, I remember Cotard had to take a few days off after the day because he was so upset. Cotard was
he was the
Canton
first
School
officer.
Resource Officer.
Yeah, he was the first officer to see her. So he's technically the officer who found her.
Wow.
I would love to talk to him, because his report, out of all the Canton police reports, his is the most robust, and he paid very good attention to detail, except one part that is really weird when you read their reports, and I could send them to you, or if you go on our Facebook page, you can get all the reports. They're all there if you want to read them.
Yeah, let me put that in the chat here too. And you're talking about the justice for Sandra Birchmore?
Yes. Yeah, if you go to the file section, we have all the reports right there. I do have to warn people, if you read the FBI affidavit, you will probably need to take a shower after, because you will feel disgusting. It's
Really?
It's that disgusting. It has some of the most vile text messages I've ever read in my life. Like, I knew what was in those text messages, but I didn't know it was that bad. I knew the gist of what they were saying, but I didn't know they were that bad. Like,
And are you talking like threats of violence, or are you talking, sexual content?
Yeah, sexual content and just the dynamics of their relationship and things. It's
So the depth of toxicity in their relationship,
Yes.
which we already see superficially because of the age difference, but like the
Yes.
depth that's revealed in that report.
And also thinking that he met her when she was 13.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's the grooming, that went with it. So that's when, I don't know when the seed was planted of that she unalived herself, but that is when it went out there. I remember his name, Officer Yeaton. That's his name.
Okay.
So that's then they called the Massachusetts State Police, because Canton is a smaller town and they don't handle murder cases or unattended death cases. So they have to call the Massachusetts State Police to come in, and it's the unit that is under Michael Morrissey, the Norfolk DA's office. That unit comes in and they began to investigate. And from the get-go, they were saying that she did this to herself. And they barely investigated. Like, what I know of investigations, you're supposed to walk into a scene and not walk in with preconceived notions. You're supposed to let the evidence talk to you.
Yeah, develop
Right.
a fact pattern based on what you're finding and based on what you've seen video and leading up to that day. Was there an autopsy done?
Yes.
And that determined cause of death to be the asphyxiation that they then said was her fault, or caused by her.
But the thing is, excuse me, I just need a cup of water. The thing is that her hyoid bone was broken, and that should have been an indication.
That's a sign of
strangulation. And she, for some reason, now I don't know if the Massachusetts State Police put pressure on her, because that happens a lot in a lot of medical examiners' offices. My friend whose son was murdered, she did a lot of research. She's been researching how often this comes up, and she's researched a lot, and she was shocked to find out how often that happens. I mean, they work hand in hand, but they're not supposed, the medical examiner is supposed to do their job and have their findings. They're a separate entity. They're supposed to figure out, they're supposed to be the last voice for the dead. And some medical examiners just take whatever the police say and run with it. And I don't know if that's the case here, but it kind of seems like that's the only thing you can, why else would she have just gone along with it? Because there are now two other medical examiners who say that, pathologists who say that Sandra didn't do this to herself, that she was murdered.
Yeah, that's what Barbara's saying here too.
So
the original autopsy was reviewed by two individual medical experts. Both said it was homicide. The death certificate has yet to be changed.
And Dr. Bodden, he's one of the most world-renowned pathologists. He was hired by the family's lawyer to do an autopsy review, and he came back saying she didn't do this. The FBI hired a pathologist who was a strangulation expert, and they even brought this man into the medical examiner's office to meet with the head medical examiner, the medical examiner who performed the autopsy, and the two lead troopers on her case, to basically tell them, y'all are wrong. And there still hasn't been a change on her death certificate.
Unreal.
There still hasn't been a change to her autopsy. And it makes no sense. So I don't know what they're doing at the medical examiner's office. It's a miscarriage of justice, because they should have, the broken hyoid bone should have indicated that it was not a self-hanging. It was a manual strangulation.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's one thing. It could be incompetence and pride, right? Yeah. And wrong and not wanting to correct yourself, or something more nefarious. So you can't have it any other way. It's you're literally an injustice to a victim.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. Sorry.
So they're under the assumption that she did this to herself. At some point, they must have watched the video, right? Of the
they saw the video. They had that video, I believe, on the morning of the 6th, and it shows this is the last moments of her life. Here she's getting a sandwich from DoorDash. And
so it's 5:15 at night.
Yeah.
And then 5:45 or so, she's heading back outside.
Yep. I believe she's going out to clean off her car because there was snow that day. And I think she, as you see, she comes in with a snow brush.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is only 2 minutes later, too.
Yeah. And then we see him coming in that day, and we can go into
9:27 p.m.
And you notice, can you pause that for a second?
Yeah. Hold on. I'm working off a different screen. Whoops.
Watch when he comes in. Pause it right there. Most people don't walk into a building like that with their head down. Yes, it was during COVID, so a lot of people were wearing masks, but he was an anti-masker, so he didn't like wearing masks. And when he was off duty, from what we've been told by multiple people, he would never wear a mask.
Well, and it's apparent that there's an intentional move to keep a low profile.
Yes.
And he knows in his body, hands in the pocket.
Yep. And that's one of the things I say. He makes himself look smaller. He keeps his head down so you can't see his face. He's trying to disguise himself because he knows where that camera is. He helped her move into that apartment. He's been over that apartment many times in the 2 months she lived there. So
and you can, this is a good picture too, because you have the windows on the right and left side that kind of give you I don't know what I'm trying to say, basically like a height standard, like so you can see how tall he is. And I wanted to show
contrast,
like when she's coming in now. Let's see if I can get back.
He's
she's
6'4". She's 4'10". Like,
so here we'll let this play out again. So here's comes in at 5:46. She's had enough cleaning her car off, and then 9:30 at night he comes in 9:27.
Actually, just so you know, the time stamp is 13 minutes off, so he actually gets there at 9:14.
Okay. And then about a half hour later, he's walking back out.
Yep. And you notice he kind of glances in the direction of the camera, and then you can see the snow in the background. And then he goes back to the hospital.
Here, I want to just back that up a little bit. Yeah. So he goes back to hospital. What was he doing at the hospital?
His wife was there for a planned C-section on the 2nd to have their 3rd child.
That's nice.
Yes.
And what was I I don't know if you said this or not, but at the time of her death, she was pregnant as well, right, Sandra?
Yes. She was 10 weeks pregnant, and she was pregnant with his baby.
And that's proven, right? They've
Yes.
said it was his child.
Yes. In the text messages on the that the FBI released, it says, that is his child. And he says
acknowledge it.
Yes,
It is.
he acknowledges it.
Barbara said that she had rub marks on her nose and a buckle indentation on her neck and chest area.
Yes. And that was one of the reasons why the pathologist who was the strangulation expert said, because the buckle there was a mark for the buckle, like, I'm not sure exactly where on the chest, but it was the same buckle that was here. So there was no way she could have done it herself, because it was a mark here, an indentation here, and then the buckle was here, and there was the indentation. I don't know which side. I can't remember which side. But so the indentation from the buckle, because it was a strap from her. There was a army bag on her floor. He used the strap of that. And when you read the Canton, allegedly, sorry. He allegedly used the strap of that. And when you go through the Canton police reports, that's one of the weird things that made me say, what is up with this case? None of them agree with what was used for the ligature. One says it's a scarf. Two of them say it's a strap. One of them says it's a strap, lanyard, or a rope or string. Like, it's all over the place. And you would think that 5 grown officers would be able to tell us what the ligature was tied with. And they would be able to all agree what it was tied with. And that was one of the reasons why I was like, there's something wrong here.
Well, also is the thought that he manually strangled her, she passed, and then he staged that she had done it herself. So I guess I'm curious about the mark on her body. Aren't they able to indicate if that is a post-mortem bruising? Or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I assume they can.
The way
they didn't really say that in the affidavit. They just said that there was a mark, and as Barb said, there was also the scuff. Her nose was there was an abrasion on her nose, and that's one of the things that was. I can't remember actually I remember seeing it. Because I just went through that. The Canton Police Department said there was no signs of a struggle, but an abrasion on the nose would be a sign of a struggle. Yeah. And it makes no sense that they would say that. And they missed other things. She had a flamingo necklace that she used to wear. That was her Nana Claire's, and that was pulled off. It had clumps of hair. It was broken and had clumps of hair in it. Family members found it. And then one of the things that the FBI mentioned was that she had 2 loads of laundry, and she had a load in the washing machine and a load in the dryer. And that's not an indication of somebody who's going to harm themselves.
Right. Why would she do the laundry before?
Right. Yeah. And it's not the percentage of women that harm themselves while they're pregnant is very, very, very low. And everybody, I mean, that's everybody, all her friends, her family, her coworkers, everybody said how happy she was and how excited she was to have this baby. She was so excited she got in trouble at work because she told kids, and they were little kids, it was an elementary school. She was telling little kids, "Oh, I'm pregnant," and they were like, "You need to you can't be telling the little kids this," So why would she do this to herself if she was so happy and excited becoming a mother. Like,
which
she
is
was
a really important component to an investigation is a person's behavioral presentation before a supposed act like that. You would consider patterns of behavior. Did she isolate? Did she start giving things away? Did she start speaking in hopeless terminology? And if that's not the case, then it doesn't make sense. It becomes random.
Yeah. Well, they were trying to say that because his explanation, because the Massachusetts State Police after seeing that video, and they said that, what were you doing there? And he said, we got into a big fight. I went there to break up with her. We got into a big fight. She was fine when I left. And they were trying to say that she did this because she was so upset that they broke up. But that makes no sense either, because they'd broken up many times. He had done it through text messages. That's one of the things I've always said. Why was he there? He didn't need to be there to break up with her.
Right.
He'd done it through text messages. He'd done it over the phone. There was no reason for him to be there.
Barbara says Sandra wouldn't eat anything without asking me if it was safe for the baby. She was so focused on becoming a good mom. So yeah.
Yeah. And she was so focused on being a mom. I mean, you got to remember, she's only 10 weeks pregnant. She was telling everybody. She was about to announce to the world on Valentine's Day. She had one of her friends paint for her on a piece of canvas. I'm going to have my very own little Valentine. And she was going to, put that on social media to fully announce to the world. She was calling people that she hadn't spoken to in years just to tell them that she was going to be a mom. She was that day she made an appointment to get photos done. I can't remember if Barb might remember. I can't remember if they were like pregnancy photos or if they were photos for once the baby was born. And she was also planning for what would happen with her cat. And that's another suspicious thing, because if she's going to plan for what would happen with her cats when she goes into the hospital to have a child, she would have made plans for what would happen to her cats if she was going to do that to herself. She loved her cats. She wouldn't have done that without taking care of them.
So at what point, because he's now been charged, so at what point, what made them shift gears and realize that he was the one involved? Was it the video itself that kind of put a target on his back, or?
No, the Massachusetts State Police, they got his phones from him, and he deleted everything from his phones, and they said they couldn't get anything, but she had everything on her phone. So and her phone was backed up to her computer. There was 32,000 plus, I think it's 37,000 text messages between the two of them for over the years that they, and there was over 50,000 text messages because with William Farwell and Robert Devine too, between them two and Sandra, the Massachusetts State Police and Michael Morrissey's office, the Norfolk DA's office, said there's nothing, she did this to herself. There's no information saying that otherwise, that basically her death investigation was closed. But it got to the FBI, and the FBI in 2023 looked into her case for a year, and they concluded that allegedly he murdered her.
And how did the FBI come to get involved? Was there enough stink made about inadequate investigation, or
I think there's a
deal on how investigating?
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard of the Karen Reed case.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
They were already looking into the Karen Reed case. It's the same town, same investigators, same Norfolk DA's office. And I don't know who went. I would love to know who went there, but I emailed Josh Levy, the district, the U.S. attorney that was head of the DOJ in Boston, and Barb and I met in the winter of 2023. I started the group, and Barb and I just started chugging along to get the public to really look at Sandra's case and make us think. And it took us a year and a half to really get roaring. And then we started doing standouts in Stoughton and Canton. And we started getting some of the free Karen Reed people to be like, wait a minute, there's another case that's just as crazy with the same investigators. And we started getting the public really involved in Sandra's case. I started going on a lot of YouTube shows. I started, anytime I could, I would get in front of the press. I think there was a combination of the public pressure, and I think they found some information in their course of investigating John O'Keefe's death and the investigation into that. So I think they might have found something, or there are people who went to them. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know how they really got into it. But I can say specifically in the summer of 2023, around the time they started investigating, I was emailing them saying, listen, you need to look into her case. This is corruption here. What happened in Stoughton, because it's not just what happened with her death. It's also the abuse she incurred from Matthew, allegedly from Matthew, William, and Robert Devine, which the day after they found her, the Stoughton Police Department started over a year and a half investigation into what these guys were doing to her. And they put out a 60-page report on the abuse that Sandra incurred from these three officers.
And that all came from the discovery of their text messages. Like, was their relationship known prior to her death and discovery of the text messages?
This came from her being found dead.
Okay. So their relationship was not public.
I have suspicions that, because police officers talk. It's not like it's a huge police station, but I don't know. I don't know who knew. But there's a lot of stuff that went on, and that's another report I recommend. If people want to read the reports, this is the report I recommend people start with, and then look at the Canton report, and then also the FBI report. But the Stoughton report, the Canton reports are really
those are all on that Facebook page, right? The Justice for Sandra Birchmore. All right, so I'll share that real quick. So if you come over here to files, right?
Yeah, if you go to the files section, it should be at the top. Yep, all the files right there.
So which one did you want to look at? Or I don't even know if they can read it on here because it's going to be so small. But
yeah, the Canton reports might be a good one because those are really short. You can even show them how it's said. Yeah, it's probably can't read it. How the officers said, one saw this, one saw that. But I recommend people, it's not the easiest reading to do. It's not like a fun read, but it's good for parents even to look at this, because that's one of the reasons why I do what I do, for us to also, beyond Sandra, so no other children does not happen to another child, because it started when she was a child. She was groomed from the age of 13 and it continued into her being 23. And yes, she was an adult at that point, but when a child is groomed,
absolutely,
they're under that person's thumb, Yeah,
that's victimization still, and there was a risk of her breaking free of any victim mentality to some degree, becoming a mother and raising a family, because that seems to, based on what you said, struck a chord with her caregiving side, and being lonely and having to grow up fast. And of course, if mom had, passed, she's now lost a piece of her identity as a caregiver. And that's now placed with a child, which is magical all in itself when you become a mom.
Yeah. And I mean, like in 2016, she lost her mom. And then a month later, she lost her Nana. And I mean, and then 3 years later, she lost her aunt. And those were like three, she still has her other aunt, but those were the, the core people of her life. And they were gone. So she was almost like she was, she was still going through life, but I mean, a part of her was gone, and she just wanted a family to call her own. And that's why she wanted to have a child so bad, And one of the things that when you look at Sandra, she was, with her being 4'10", and she looks so young. She, even at the age of 23, she still looked like a child. I mean, that picture right there is one of her last pictures that she posted on Facebook, and the one of her in the car. Look how young she looks. She looks like a teenager.
Yeah.
So even at 23, she still looked like a child. That picture right there with her, where you could see like the police emblem, because that's her uniform for the explorers. She was like 13, 14. Yeah. And this is when they started grooming her, allegedly.
Yeah, and I had read that the FBI believes it started when she was 15 years old, the sexual relationship that she had with him.
They admit it. He admits it in text messages. So
is the thought that the other gentlemen were just facilitating the possibility for this relationship, or are they involved, having been sexual with her?
They're involved in having sexual relations with her too, on duty. A lot of this stuff was going on duty. They would meet her places and things like that. Yeah.
Unreal.
And so that's putting the public at risk. You think of it, when they're scooting off to do what they're doing, unless it's their lunch break, the public, they're not doing their duties as a police officer. So the people of Stoughton should be angry that their police officers were doing this. And the problem is that
to a child.
Yeah. Yes.
So what about our taxes? They're doing this shit to a child.
Yeah. Well, it's just twofold. You're spitting in the face of taxpayers, and then you're also breaking the laws that we're paying you to protect us.
Exactly. Exactly.
And they're taking advantage of a young girl who, not having a father in her life is going to be more susceptible to male attention and, feeling special and wanted, especially if she, was isolated or alienated from her peers because of her growing up quickly. Yeah.
And looking up to them because she wanted to be a police officer.
She did. And the way the FBI says in the affidavit, the way he wormed his way into her life is typical grooming. He was going to the library with her to, help her with homework. And, she didn't go to her prom. She spent that time with him. So it's just, what happened, it should have never transpired. She should be alive, living her life. It's horrific what happened to her.
Yeah. Barbara brings up that there's a hearing on Tuesday, right?
Yes. Matthew Farwell has his first hearing. There were supposed to be others, but they got pushed. And it's the 4-year anniversary of her body.
I was just going to say.
So we feel like it was divined that way. And I hate to use the word divine, but it was divined that way. Actually, Barb and I were talking when we found out, and she's like, how do you think that happened? I said, Sandra did it. Like, so I just can't wait for him, because I know I've been the bane of their existence, you know, and I cannot wait for him to look at him and smirk at him. So he sees my face, because he knows that I had a part in this, getting him behind bars. You know, I made sure that the public knew his name, and I cannot wait to do that.
What's going on with his brother and the other officer or the sergeant? Have they been charged with anything?
No, not yet. We're hoping charges come. I hope they're not cutting deals with them so they'll testify against Matthew. But right now, as it stands, the Attorney General is looking into charging them with possibly larceny charges for what they were doing on duty, you know, but we don't know if that's going to happen.
Wow.
That kind of angers me, because it's almost like they've been saying that's been talked about in the Norfolk area. And to me, it's almost like that's a way for them to be like, see guys, we got them, you know, we charged them, but you're not charging them for what they did. Like, who cares about that? Who cares?
Are they still employed with this
No,
department?
they all resigned.
All three? Okay.
Both William and Matthew decertified themselves as police officers. Robert Devine is still fighting and going through the post commission to find out if he can fully be decertified as a police officer. But right now he's retired and he's pulling a pension. So taxpayers are paying him like $5,000 every month.
Pete says this is very common in public safety. Unfortunately, I used to do risk improvement work in Maine to reduce sexual misconduct cases on police, fire, and EMS. So Barb's asking, why is that? Why is that, Pete?
Yeah.
Here's the answer. Misuse of power and entitlement syndrome.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah.
You know, they feel like they don't, you know, he allegedly went in there thinking that he could cover up the crime. You know, he could stage her. And if not, his boys in blue would help him out and get him out of it. And for 3.5 years, it went that way.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the FBI.
I'm just going to show this video again real quick in case you're joining us late here.
If it wasn't for the FBI, he would not be in jail right now. And I spoke to somebody who is a former prison guard where he is, and he is in protective custody because of, you know, he's a former police officer, and because he's a pedophile, you know.
What he's in for. Yeah.
So he's
targets on his back.
Yeah. So he's in protective custody. He gets out an hour a day, and he doesn't like go to the rec room or get any exercise. He goes and takes his shower and goes back to his cell. So I thought that was interesting.
Do we have any information on their lives? Like his life, and like what he, like, does he have a history of, you know, violent behavior? Is he somebody that would be, you know, like, were his family shocked by this?
I don't know about the family being shocked, but him and his brother got in a lot of trouble. Like, they were little kind of punks when they were younger.
Okay.
They should have never been able to become police officers, because they were pulling people over as police explorers, pretending to be police officers. And they got caught.
Wow.
And they were still allowed to become police officers. But you know why? Because their mentor, Robert Devine, put in a good word. And at that point, he was the deputy police chief of Stoughton. This man was one heartbeat away of being the police chief of Stoughton.
Makes me wonder too if he had just poor judgment and thought he could fix two wayward boys, and really it was just the opposite response.
No. No, that the girl who was groomed by him in 2001 to 2002, she told me, and it gave me chills when she said this. She said he was grooming the boys too, but not to be victims. He would, and if you read the Stoughton report, the former Deputy Chief Holmes, who did the investigation, he says, that he took them under their wing. He was their mentor. He says it in a bunch of different ways, like they were his underlings, things like that. And I think he saw something,
Yeah. Do you think that there, or is there indication that there's something bigger in terms of sex trafficking or any operation type stuff that go beyond grooming minors? And I mean,
yeah. Well, I personally think Sandra was being trafficked, and I know, like my whole team agrees with that. She was being introduced to other men. There is a fourth police officer. At the time, he was a Stoughton animal control officer, and he admitted to having he got something in exchange for a cat.
Yeah, so he exchanged a cat for sexual favor.
Yes. And she was an adult then. She wasn't a child. And there's also a military recruiter that she was introduced to. And when you read the Stoughton police report, when you get to William's part, there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. William was looking himself up in the CGIS system, which is basically where law enforcement goes to look up, like, cases, and they look up, plates and things like that.
Looking for his name being posted in the case file.
Yes. He looked Sandra up twice, and he looked himself up 24 times. He was hired in 2017, and that started in 2017. That's somebody who is worried about them getting caught for something.
Well, and somebody who's repeatedly committing a crime that they're making sure they're not being caught for over time.
Exactly. He's making sure that his name didn't pop in another jurisdiction. He was making sure that there was no investigation into him. And he was introducing Sandra to other men. He was also having Sandra send him videos and photos of when she had sex with other men. And this came out in, I can't remember I think it's the civil case, or either the civil case or the post commission. I can't remember which one. And I believe it's the civil case. It was said that they were passing her around like a toy. One of the lawyers said. So we don't know who else is involved. We don't know who else they were introducing her to.
Well, I would have to guess there's a lot of people involved. If all of a sudden it kind of gets swept under the rug, no investigation. It wasn't until you and others started, making it important that they decided to look back into it, or FBI did.
Yeah.
And no other victims have spoken up, or any potential, or females that, aside from, I think you had said one about, being
not that I know of.
2001, yeah.
Part of the problem is Robert Devine's still on the streets. William Farwell is still on the streets. People are scared because they're no longer police officers, but they have friends. And who do you go to if the police are the one who are abusing you?
Yeah.
There's nobody to go to. People
Has she told anyone? Like, I know you said she didn't have a lot of friends or anything, but
well, she had friends, but that was more when she was little. She had hard time. She did have friends, and towards the end, she was starting to tell people. She was, and she was also noticing things that he was doing. She did tell one of her friends that they started hooking up when she was 15. So she was starting to, like when I said she was starting to flourish and come into her own, I think she was starting to realize that, you know what, I'm not going to take this anymore. You know, she was starting to tell people. That's why her friend knew to tell, you know, she was supposed to keep it secret that they were dating, you know. It's not really dating, you know. She was supposed to keep that all secret, and she was telling people. Sandra almost put the breadcrumbs out there. Through text messages, she told her friend that, you know, he came over and he's being really nice. He brought me ginger ale, but he's being weird. He went and looked at her closet door and went in her bathroom and looked at her shower.
She told a friend that?
Yes.
Was it that night or like another?
No, I think it was a couple weeks before. And he was escalating too. There was 2 incidences where he shoved her once, and then there was another time where he snatched her phone, like violently snatched her phone out of her hand, because I think she threatened to tell his wife. She was escalating too. So it's like, I think, like I said, that plays into where his mental, you know, state was, because he was in fear of it all coming out.
He's losing control of her.
Yes, and he knew that. He could tell that he lost control, and he flipped out on her because her friend called the police department. He was like, you know, who else knows, you know, what's going to happen, you know, who else is going to pop up, who are you telling? You know, he wasn't happy. And that's why they were able to get him on, because the FBI doesn't do straight up murder cases. There has to be a special circumstance, like, you know, in her case, they got him for allegedly murdering a witness, and that's what she was. She was a witness against him, and he knew that. That's why he did what he did.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around the FBI not getting involved in murder cases.
Yeah, they do like conspiracy cases and that type of thing, but they don't do like straight up murder. That's usually a local jurisdiction thing. That's why it fell under the Massachusetts State Police and the Norfolk DA's office.
Yeah.
Do have someone, Blessings Galore said, was there an issue or an argument with the last name of the baby? Well, that was kind of what we're thinking, right? Is because she wanted to put his name on the birth certificate.
Yes, she wanted to put his name on the birth certificate, and he didn't want to. I mean, and she told people that, you know, he was threatening her. He said that, you know, if you don't take care of the baby, I will, and making comments like that. He wanted her to get an abortion, and, you know, like I said, it was ramping up, and it came to a head that night. And I think he planned it that night because, like we said, his wife was in the hospital, and I could send you the photo, but there's a photo, it's chilling. His eyes look vacant. There's a photo of him holding his baby, and he has the mask on, and he has the same sweatshirt on.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Wow.
After taking the life of his other child.
Yeah. It's yeah. He's taken the life of his other child.
Exactly. Yeah, you know.
It's sick. It's sick. And I mean, I get a little bit bombastic, and I always call him an animal. He's not a person to me. He's an animal for what he did to her as a child, and for what he did to end her life. You know,
and it seems after talking with you that this is less about wanting to hide or maintain an image with his family and his profession versus he's losing. I hate to say it this way, but a cash cow. Like if she becomes a mom and he's been making money off her, exploiting her in ways for himself and other people, like it does throw a wrench into any operation as well as ruining his reputation.
Yeah. I think his brother was more
If
the
it's
one
something that's organized.
but yeah, that all three of them, we don't, there's a lot that we don't know because we don't have all the files, but yeah, that's us at Canton Town Hall. In 2024,
Fighting for justice.
we started doing these.
Well,
doing once a month.
It's amazing work what you're doing, Mizzy, and
Thank you.
I know the family appreciates it, and the public bringing it forward so that this case can be solved. And he has been charged now, so that's a good thing. And hopefully, February 4th.
In Saturday we're doing it's it's the 4-year anniversary, so we're doing the memorial, and then after we're going to the Canton Police Department and doing a standout there too. More of a rally / standout, because standouts are more just holding signs and kind of chilling and talking to each other. We're gonna have some speakers there too on Saturday.
Nice.
We felt like Canton was the place to go because that was where she lost her life.
What time Saturday is this happening?
Saturday at 1:00 at the Canton Police Department.
Right. So if you're near Canton, Massachusetts on Saturday, please stop in and join.
Help. We have extra signs. My group has we make our lovely sign queen Trisha. She makes signs, and we hand them out for people to hold there, and then we collect them and save them for the next time.
And I did put in the chat a link to your YouTube channel. If you want to hear more about Sandra's case, definitely Missy's the girl to go to. All kinds of videos on here. But you also had covered other cases prior to Sandra's as well, right?
Yes. Excuse me. Yeah, my first case was Brandon Embry. And that's a part of the story I didn't get into. Hold on. Sorry. Try not to have a coughing fit. I've been sick for like a month.
Here, I'll get back.
Yeah, my first case was a case of Brandon Embry. He was a 33-year-old Navy veteran from North Carolina. A similar situation like Sandra's. He was murdered, and they tried to say he did it to himself. And if you saw his crime scene, you would be like, what insanity is this? Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, we actually covered his case as well.
Oh, you did?
Yep. Yeah, there's no way what happened to him was self-induced.
Did you talk to his mom?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
I can't think of her name now, but
Sarah Lee.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me.
We better end this soon before you choke.
She came to me because I had saw. Excuse me. I apologize, guys. I saw Sandra's case when the Stoughton Police Department report came out. They did a press conference and it was on the news. I was irate when I saw it. But I was working on a couple of the cases, so I couldn't jump in. But I kept looking back in, like I thought it was insanity that that they were alleging that 3 cops did this to her, and nothing happened. There was no movement. It just went away. It was only in the news for like 2 days, and then it just went away. And then, a few months later, in the new year, Sarah comes to me and says, "What's up with that Sandra Birchmore case?" And I was like, I was shocked. I was like, how do you know about this case? Because nobody in Massachusetts was even talking about it. And my girl down in North Carolina's talking about it. And I was like, how do you know? And she was like, the case podcast came out, and because she was interviewing with them before that, and she was like, she's like, we gotta look into this case. So that's how we started. Her and I started digging into the case, and we did a deep dive, and that's how we found out about the door handles. Brandon Embry.
Yeah, so that was January 3rd last year.
Yeah. I'll have to watch it. He holds a special place in my heart because, it was my first case, and I did a lot with Sarah, to help her. Like, she would always be like, hey, can you email, can you look up these people, or can you do this and do that? Yeah, I'll do it. Whatever you want. And her and I started digging into the case, And, I did a virtual tour of the apartment buildings, like what the apartments look like. That's how I found out about the door handles, that they weren't knobs, they were actual handles. And I started reading the report, and I was clipping it out to her. And that's when her and I were both wondering from the get-go, because we were like, how is she affording this apartment? Because she's a teacher's assistant. So we were like, looking into that. Sarah found out how much a teacher assistant in that area would make. And, for a few weeks, we dug into it, and I found the CJIS thing about William, and I was like, I think William was trafficking her. And she was like, I think he was too, allegedly. And she said, Mizzy, I got to get back to Brandon's case. She's the one who said, hey, will you make a Facebook page? She said, I'll do the petition if you make the Facebook page. She said, I can maintain the Facebook, the petition, but I can't with Brandon's case do a Facebook page. And I thought for a second, and I was like, because there was nothing, nobody was saying anything. And I was like, yes. But I knew if I did that, I wasn't going to be able to do what I was doing, interviewing other families, because it was too much. And I said, yeah, and I jumped in, and, I sent out messages to every person on her Facebook page. Her Facebook page was kind of locked to me, but I could see pictures. So I saw every friend or family member that commented or was tagged in the pictures. I emailed everybody, and Barb's the only one who got back to me. And that's how my adventure with Barbara began. And
how does Barbara know her?
That's her cousin.
Cousin. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that earlier.
Yeah, she actually was texting with Sandra the night it happened.
Oh, so sorry, Barb.
Yes, Barb.
And her jumping into the story, gave her some to take over things. She was able to do something instead of, because there's no handbook for what grieving family members, for where to start, what to do. You just know that somebody you loved is gone, and something happened to them, and the police aren't solving their crime. And at least her jumping in with me and becoming my partner in this, she was able to feel like she was doing something.
Well, it grounds you into a purpose when you've got purpose now, and you can, versus having to fight through layers of emotion of the loss, frustration with law enforcement, about where to start. And
it's tough. I mean, it's tough because she lives in it every day, and like right now it's a tough time for her. I mean, Saturday's the 4-year anniversary, so it's a tough time for her, but she's definitely, I don't think people will realize how much of a part of behind the scenes, and how much, yes, I was the face of the group because she wasn't supposed to be speaking out, and, we were equal partners. I always bounced stuff off of her and things like that. So, she was, like you said, she was able to come with purpose and start, making some headway. And we've done so much to get it out to the public. Even just that was, to me, was a feat within itself, because we started, at the first few weeks, it was just, I was begging my friends and family to sign up so it looked like we had members. And now we're at 14,000.6 members. Barb made a website for her. If people want to go to that, it's just justiceforsandrabirchmore.com. I have a Twitter handle, just Sandra Birchmore, at Sandra Birchmore. And we've been able to leverage social media and get her case out there, and that's continue to get people talking about her case. Because
I'm sure it does feel hopeless. Even just having this discussion is kind of put into perspective what it must feel like to go up against the system when the system's working against you. We can talk about that all we want in generic terms, but when you have a specific situation or a person that really does experience a loss of power,
yeah,
it really does tell you how big the system is and how hopeless it can feel.
Yeah, and you just want to, you want to, like, even now, even though it's, I mean, this case is internationally known now, I sometimes go like, all right, what are we going to do to get more press? What are we going to do to get, we got to keep it in that, we got to keep it out there. And luckily sometimes things happen where, like, it's kind of funny, the day there was one of those pictures you had of us standing out in front of Canton.
Let me get that pulled up again.
Town hall. That was a few days before he was arrested. And I was like, kind of like, what are we going to do to get more press? We got some press that day. What are we going to do we need more momentum. And that he was arrested a couple days later.
That's awesome. Well, I'm proud of you, and I'm sure Danielle is as well.
I'm very happy to talk to you and meet you tonight.
It was lovely meeting you guys. It's important to keep coming on shows like yours, to keep for people who don't know about the case, or people who have heard about the case but they don't know a lot about the case, to keep pushing it, because just because Matthew Farwell was arrested, there's still others out there that need to go down too, and his case isn't over. There's no guarantee that he gets. I mean, usually when the feds come for you, they have the goods. That's why they have such a high rate of
clearance rate.
Yeah, clearance rate. But there's no guarantee, and we want to make sure that the public keeps their eye on this, and we need to keep the pressure on them, because if he doesn't get convicted through them, he can get state charges. They can still go after him for state charges, and that's not double jeopardy. They're two different entities.
Yeah.
So we need to keep the public pressure, because if he doesn't get convicted, which I think he will, the state should go after him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Missy, thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you for everyone for watching. We're going to let you go now. Please, guys, follow this case. Follow Missy's YouTube channel to learn more. It's also the Facebook page, Justice for Sandra Birchmore. And that you have access to those files I had kind of looked at earlier. It's just great job, Missy. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was nice meeting you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Right. Thank you. Oops. See, this is where I need Jeff, because Jeff does the outro.
He makes it so smooth.
Sorry, we're still here. All right, here we go.
For 5-year-old Taylor Williams led investigators to Alabama this week.
So we have some breaking news from Florida. An arrest has been made in connection.
After years of agony, a glimmer of hope for the family.
Investigators spent hours searching through this house off Pennsylvania Avenue.
What could be a major development in the search for missing Alabama teenager.
Tonight, a stunning twist in the search for Taylor.
Somebody out there knows something.
They want to lay him to rest their way, not by somebody else's way.